The topic of discussion that we are going to deal right now is we are going to talk about arterial supply of brain. Now under this topic, what we are going to do, we are going to discuss all these diagrams in detail. We'll be speaking about what we'll be discussing about arterial circle of Willis, or what or hexagon of Willis. So yes, these are the slides that we are going to discuss. Now without delay, let's begin our discussion. So now before getting into it, we need to know about what is this. This is what, yes, this is the main center of discussion, that is circle of Willis, right? Now this circle of Willis, what is this? This is the main, we can say the main blood supply of our brain region. Now talking about its location, it is located in interpedunculaire, right? Interpedunculaire or cerebral area of subarachnoid space, that is its location. And this what is this? This is our cerebral arterial circle or circle of Willis. It is contributed by what? It is mainly contributed by here two main arteries. What are the two main arteries? The first one is our internal carotid artery. You can see right here, internal carotid artery. It is performing what? It is performing its role through anteriorly, and another is our vertebral artery. Now it is what? It is contributing toward posteriorly. Now these are what? These are the two main contributor. Now let's begin our discussion from here. Now this from this vertebral artery. Now talking about this vertebral artery, it enters into cranial cavity through what? Through our one foramen, that is foramen magnum. Now from this foramen magnum, it will just get inside our cranial cavity. Now there are two, you can see what? This is one vertebral artery and this is another vertebral artery. What they will do, they will join to form what? They will join to form one common, what is this? This is our basilar artery. Two vertebral artery joining together to form one basilar artery. That's all. Okay. Now this basilar artery, it is called basilar artery because it is present at the base of bones. Now let's talk about the branch of vertebral artery. Talking about the branch of vertebral artery, what we have, as you can see these vertebral artery, they give branch. As you can see, the first branch that we see is posterior inferior cerebral artery. Posterior inferior cerebral artery, we can say what? PICA, posterior inferior cerebellar artery, right? These are what? These are on each side. As you can see, these are two in number in each side. That's all. Now another is, as you can see, what? There are two anterior spinal artery, two anterior spinal artery, as they join together and form one, right? One. Now what is its importance? Its importance is that later what they will do is, yes, as you can see, two anterior spinal artery, they are forming what? One anterior spinal artery in midline, and these supply what? These supply anterior 2/3 of spinal cord, anterior 2/3 of spinal cord. That's all, right? And there is also what? There is also posterior spinal artery that is supplying what? Posterior 1/3 of spinal cord. That is what? That is also the branch of vertebral artery. So in vertebral, what we talked about what? This vertebral artery, they will go and they will join to form basilar artery. They have what? They have branches such as what? Posterior inferior cerebellar artery, that is PICA, and we have another what? Anterior spinal artery. We have posterior spinal artery also. So this was about what? This was our vertebral artery. Now let's move further. Now moving further, what we have is, we have basilar artery. Now talking about this basilar artery, right? Now as I have said, it is present at the base of bones, so the name is basilar artery, right? Okay. Now what is its function? Its function is that it supplies what? It supplies bones. It supplies what? Upper medulla. Similarly, another thing is, it supplies what? It supplies midbrain, right? So it supplies midbrain also. Midbrain also. So we know there is what? How is the arrangement of brain stem? How is the arrangement of midbrain? Brain stem, midbrain, pons, and medulla oblongata. So it is present somewhere right here in the base of pons. So it is supplying what? It is supplying midbrain also. It is supplying pons also. What? It is supplying what? Upper medulla oblongata also. So now let's talk about the branch of this basilar artery. Now talking about the branch of this basilar artery, right? This basilar artery. So what we will see is, we will see what? Initially what we will see, as you can see, what you can see? We can see anterior inferior cerebral artery. So what? AICA. So here the posterior inferior cerebral artery was the branch of what? PICA was the branch of what? Our this vertebral artery. But here anterior inferior cerebral artery is the branch of our this basilar artery. That's all. Okay. Now one important thing about this anterior inferior cerebral artery is that, what is this? This is our anterior inferior cerebral artery. It give branch, right? It give branch in what? In 80% of the case, this it give branch, and that branch is our labyrinthine artery. Labyrinthine artery in 80% of the case. But what happens in 20% of the case? In 20% of the case, this labyrinthine artery is direct branch of this what? Basilar artery. That is one important thing that we need to keep in our mind. So that's all. We talked about two branches. One is what? One is we talked about what? We talked about one branch, that is anterior inferior cerebellar artery, and from that in 80% of the case there is labyrinthine artery also. So let's move into other. Now yes, I have already said, okay, about 20% of the case, that is what? That is our labyrinthine artery. Now another branch is our superior cerebellar artery. Superior cerebellar artery. So yes, now before this we talked about what? We talked about cerebellar artery, but we talked about inferior cerebellar artery. One was posterior, another was what? Anterior. So another was what? Our anterior, right? But now here we in superior cerebellar artery, it is branch of what? It is branch of our bacillary artery. Similarly, anterior inferior cerebellar artery is also the branch of bacillary artery, right? Okay, now moving further, what we will see here is, we will see that there is posterior cerebral artery also. Now this posterior cerebral artery is also the branch of our basilar artery. So in basilar artery, what we talked that there is what? There is branch our anterior inferior cerebral artery, we have superior cerebral artery, another is that we have posterior cerebral artery, right? We talked about these things, right? And we said that labyrinthine artery is, so in 20% of the case, labyrinthine artery is direct branch of what? Our bacillary artery. But in the case of what? In the case of 80%, they arise from anterior inferior cerebral artery. So this was all about what? This was all about bacillary artery. Now at the end of bacillary artery, what I would like to add up is that this posterior cerebral artery, it supplies posterior cerebrum, right? It supplies what? Cerebrum, right? Cerebrum. Here we are talking about cerebral, right? Not bellum, right? Here we are talking about cerebellum, here we are talking about cerebellum, here we are talking about cerebellum. So what is this posterior cerebral artery doing? This is supplying cerebrum and communicates with posterior communicating branch of internal carotid artery, and that will look what? Posterior. What it is doing? It is communicating with what? Posterior communicating artery, which is the branch of internal carotid artery, and it is contributing in formation of what? Our circle of Willis. So that is another thing. I will go slowly into that. Okay, now there is one special condition, that is Beery aneurysm, right? Beery aneurysm in posterior communicating artery, right? What is this? This is our posterior communicating artery. Beery aneurysm in posterior communicating artery, the most commonly damaged nerve is oculomotor nerve, right? Why it is oculomotor nerve? We'll just get into these things afterwards, don't worry. So now let's talk about what? Beery aneurysm. We're talking about Beery aneurysm. What is this Beery aneurysm? What is this? It is mainly present in subarachnoid space, right? And it will lead to what? Subarachnoid what? Hemorrhage. Subarachnoid hemorrhage. And what will happen in this condition? In this condition, cerebrospinal fluid, which is present in subarachnoid space, will mix with what? Will mix with blood, right? This is the condition. Okay, now we talked about what? We talked about vertebral artery, we talked about basilar artery, we talked about their branches also. Now let's move into internal carotid artery. Now talking about this internal carotid artery, don't worry, we'll go into schematic diagram afterwards also, so it will be all clear. Now moving into what? Internal carotid artery. Now talking about internal carotid artery, it consists of how many branches? It consists of 5 branches. Now what are the 5 branches? Okay, this is our internal carotid artery. As you can see, one branch is just right here, another is right here, another is right here. Yes, already there are 3, right? Another is right here, 4, right? And if you will see, okay, 1 2 3 4. Now okay, we'll just, and another is our what? Ophthalmic artery also is there. Okay, 1 2 3 4, and what is another? And we will say, okay, posterior communicating, okay, anterior communicating artery. Okay, we'll just go slowly and gradually. Okay, now talking about the branches of what? This internal carotid artery. What are the branches? The first one is our what? This is what? This is our anterior cerebral artery. As you can see, what is this? This is our anterior cerebral artery. Now what it is, it as name suggests, it will supply what? Anterior cerebrum. Now similarly what we have middle cerebral artery, anterior cerebral artery, middle cerebral artery, right? Okay, now this middle cerebral artery, what it is doing, it is going to lateral sulcus of brain, right? It will supply the mainly the lateral area of brain, this middle cerebral artery. Another is our posterior communicating artery. If you will see carefully, what is this? This is our posterior communicating artery, right? Posterior communicating artery, it will contribute to what? Circle of Willis. Yes, it is contributing to circle of Willis. That's all. Okay, now another is our ophthalmic artery. As you can see on both sides, what? This is our ophthalmic artery, supplies eyeball. And another is our anterior choroidal artery. Yes, we are not counting this anterior choroidal artery. This anterior choroidal artery, what it will supply? Internal capsule. And how it will supply the different part of internal capsule will be going shortly. So now what are the branches of internal capsule? What are the branches of internal carotid artery? This is our internal carotid artery. The first is our what? Anterior anterior cerebral artery, right? We have middle cerebral artery, right? Middle cerebral artery right here. And what we have, what is this? Posterior communicating artery. We have anterior choroidal artery, we have ophthalmic artery. This is our what? Anterior cerebral artery. So how many branches? 5 branches. Again let's repeat. This is anterior cerebral artery. What is this? This is our ophthalmic, right? Ophthalmic artery. This is middle cerebral artery. What is this? This is anterior choroidal artery. What is this? This is our posterior communicating artery. So these are the branch of our these internal carotid artery. Now let's move further. Moving further, let's move into this schematic diagram. Now in this diagram the same thing is going on. What is this? Vertebral artery. Now this two vertebral artery, what they are doing, they are going and joining to form basilar artery. Now as we have discussed, these vertebral artery, they have what? They have different branches. What is this branch? This is our PICA, means posterior inferior cerebellar artery, right? Posterior inferior cerebellar artery. Now similarly on both sides there are posterior inferior cerebellar artery. What we have these anterior spinal artery. They, together they form what? They will form anterior spinal artery. They supply what? Anterior 2/3 of spinal cord, right? Anterior 2/3 of spinal cord. Okay, now another one important thing is that, what is this? This is the midline of body. This is the midline of body. Now there is what? There is medullary syndrome, medial medullary syndrome, and that medial medullary syndrome is due to blockage of what? Due to blockage of these our anterior spinal artery. So that's all, right? Anterior spinal artery. Yes, we completed what? We completed our this vertebral artery. Yes, I forgot to mention what is this? This is our midbrain. This is our pons. This is what? Medulla oblongata, right? This is midbrain portion. This is what? This is pons, and this is what? This is our medulla oblongata region. Okay, now talking about what? Basilar artery, right? You will see the continuation of vertebral artery is our basilar artery, right? This basilar artery, what is this? There are what? The branches of basilar artery are anterior inferior cerebellar artery, right? Similarly above we have superior cerebellar artery, right? And we can see labyrinth artery. In 80% of the case it is the branch of anterior what? Inferior cerebellar artery, but in the case of 20% cases it is the direct branch. Okay, now similarly what we have what here? As you can see, what is this? Posterior cerebral artery, right? This posterior cerebral artery is also the branch of our what? Basilar artery. Now if you will see more carefully, what you will see is there are cranial number 3 and cranial number 4, right? Cranial number 3 and cranial number 4 that are present where? They are present between what? Between our superior cerebellar artery and what? Our posterior cerebral artery, right? They are present in between these two structures. So if there will be what? If there will be dilatation or if there will be damaging in these two arteries, then this nerve can be affected. So this nerve can be affected. Okay, now there is one important Weilenbach. There is lateral medullary or Weilenbach syndrome, right? In most cases this result from ipsilateral vertebral artery occlusion, right? That is mainly because of what? That is mainly because of our, talking specifically, it is because of PIC occlusion. What is this PIC occlusion? PIC occlusion is our what? Posterior inferior cerebellar artery. Okay, that was, I mean, we could have discussed it before or afterward, but that's all. I mean, it's all right. Okay, now moving further. Okay, important fact, I talked about one important fact I added right now is about posterior inferior cerebral artery, that its occlusion leads to what, lateral medullary or Wallenbach syndrome, right? Okay, and sometimes there may be not what, posterior inferior cerebral artery, at that time there may be vertebral artery, so we need to choose what, vertebral artery in such condition. Okay, now one important thing that I would like to add up right here is talking about what is this is our what, medulla oblongata. Now this medulla oblongata, it is what, it is supplied by how many arteries? It is supplied by 11 artery. How 11 artery, right? How 11 artery? Okay, the first thing is it is supplied by what, it is supplied by, okay, let's go in this diagram. It is supplied by posterior inferior cerebral artery. These are how many? These are 2 posterior inferior cerebral artery. Similarly, as posterior inferior cerebral artery, it is also supplied by anterior inferior cerebral artery. These are 2 in number, right? We got 4, right? Now these anterior and this posterior, right? Okay, talking about this posterior cerebral artery, it is supplied by what, I mean, this is branch of 2 vertebral arteries, so these 2 vertebral artery also, they will also what, supply medulla oblongata, right? Now similarly, this anterior spinal artery, these are also what, these are also 2 in number, right here and right here. These also supply medulla oblongata. Okay, now talking about the part of basilar artery, we already mentioned anterior inferior cerebral artery. So basilar artery, right, it will also supply what, upper medulla oblongata, as we mentioned, right? So how many artery in total? Okay, 2 2 2 2, that means 8 9 10, right? 9 10, and another is, okay, now another is, as what is this? This is also our artery, that is after combining 2 anterior spinal arteries. So these are what, these are responsible for supplying medulla oblongata. One important fact is that the branch of basilar artery, that is superior cerebral artery, as you can see right here, this superior cerebral artery, it do not contribute in what, supplying medulla oblongata. That's all. Okay, now moving further, yes, we discussed about this diagram also. So what are the contribution of what are the contribution of our circle of Willis? Now talking about the circle of Willis, what are its contribution? The total 9, right? 9 arteries are its contribution. Talking, okay, let's talk from posterior cerebral artery. Now where is our posterior cerebral artery? Here, right, at the base. There are how many? 2 posterior cerebral artery, right? 2 posterior cerebral artery. Now moving further, what you will see? You will see what, this is what, posterior communicating artery, 2 in number, right? Similarly, we have internal carotid artery, 2 in number. Similarly, we have what, we have now after this internal carotid artery, what we have is, as you will see, what is this? This is what, this is our anterior cerebral artery, right? Now this anterior cerebral artery is what, 2 in number, and what is this in between connecting these two? Anterior communicating artery, 2 in number. That means 2 in number in the sense what, okay, this anterior communicating artery is not 2, it is 1 in number, sorry, just in the midline. So this is 1, right? 1 2, it means 3 4 5 6 7 8 9, right? 8 9, so total 9 artery. So let's recall it again. At the base, what we have posterior cerebral artery, and then here you will see posterior communicating artery, here you will see internal carotid artery. Now here what you will see anterior cerebral artery, and in here connecting to anterior cerebral artery we have got anterior communicating artery, and the same thing repeats. What is this? This is our internal carotid artery. What is this? This is our, what is this? Posterior communicating artery, and again posterior cerebral artery. So here it will make what, one circle, right? What is this circle named? It is named circle of Willis. That's all. Okay, now this was all about what, circle of Willis. Now one important thing that we need to keep in our mind is we need to know about what, we need not know about arterial supply of internal capsule. Now talking about internal capsule, yes, what is this? This is our internal capsule, right? Now talking about the location, okay, internal capsule, we know that internal capsule, okay, this is what, lentiform nucleus, this is caudate nucleus, right? And here what is this? This is, what is this? Stratum, right? Stratum. Now this is stratum. Now what is this stratum? Stratum is our what, caudate nucleus plus putamen, right? This is our nucleus. Now here this our internal capsule. What is this? Is all our internal capsule, right? Now this is divided into 2 parts, that is upper dorsal part. What is this? This is our upper dorsal part and lower ventral part. So in upper dorsal part there is no any confusion, right? there is one what arterial supply of this upper what upper dorsal part. What is that? That is upper dorsal part is supplied by middle cerebral artery, right? This upper dorsal part is supplied by middle cerebral artery. If you remember, middle cerebral artery, what was this? Was the branch of our this what internal carotid artery, right? So this upper dorsal region, it is supplied by middle cerebral artery by lenticulostriatal branch, right? And lenticulostriatal branch. Very simple. I mean, from name, from word, it is clear that lenticulo. Why lenticulo? Because what is this? Lentiform nucleus is right there, and striatal, why? Because stratum is involved right here. So these, what is this? Upper dorsal part is supplied by lenticulostriatal branch, and it is the branch of middle cerebral artery, right? Okay, middle cerebral artery. Now what about this lower what vertebral, lower ventral part? Now this lower ventral part, it is divided into what? Different limbs. Now what are its limbs? What is this? This is our anterior limb, this is genu, right? It is genu, and this is what? This is our posterior limb, right? Okay, now talking about this anterior limb, right? This anterior limb, it is supplied by anterior cerebral artery, right? Anterior cerebral artery. If you remember anterior cerebral artery, where was our anterior cerebral artery? This was our anterior cerebral artery, right? Okay, that means this, what is this? This is what? Anterior limb is supplied by anterior cerebral artery, and in that anterior cerebral artery there is what? There is branch called recurrent branch of Hübner, recurrent branch of Hübner. So that is what it is. So now talking about genu is direct branch of internal carotid artery. It is supplied by direct branch of internal carotid artery. That's all. Now let's move here. Okay, the same story. What is this? Vertebral artery. They join together to form what? Basilar artery. Now here, what is this? Posterior. Now here, what we have? The two branches, posterior cerebral artery, right? Posterior cerebral artery are right here. Now here, what you will see? You will see, what is this? This is our internal carotid artery. It has many branches. The branches right here is our anterior cerebral artery. What is this? Downward. It is what? It is our posterior communicating artery. This is also posterior communicating artery. Now right here, what you will see? Middle cerebral artery. So I mentioned that in middle cerebral artery there is branch, that is lenticulostriatal branch, and this lenticulostriatal branch is supplying what? It is supplying internal capsule, and being specifically, it is supplying what? Lenticulostriatal branch. It is supplying the dorsal part, right? The dorsal part, upper dorsal part. Now what about this ventral part? This ventral part is what? Divided into anterior part, anterior limb, and posterior limb. Anterior limb is supplied by, what is this? Anterior cerebral artery. Now which branch of anterior cerebral artery? What is this? This is our recurrent branch of Hübner artery. So now the middle, the genu is supplied by direct branch of internal carotid artery, right? And similarly the posterior limb. Now talking about the posterior limb, right? The posterior limb is supplied by what? The anterior choroidal artery. Now this is supplying, what is this? This is our anterior choroidal artery. It is the branch of what? This internal carotid artery. So this anterior choroidal artery is supplying the what? The lower limb or the posterior limb of internal capsule. So this was about what? This was about the blood supply of internal capsule. So this much for arterial supply of brain. Wish you understood all these points. Thank you and